Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Two years ago, I packed my bags and left home to pursue my dream of studying abroad. The excitement of living in Europe was quickly tempered by the reality of student expenses. So, like many of my fellow international students, I found myself juggling classes and a part-time job. Landing a position at a local restaurant was a stroke of luck. Sure, the hours were long and the work could be demanding, but it helped pay the bills. Plus, I was slowly picking up the local language, even if I still felt more comfortable speaking English. The restaurant had its quirks. Being in Europe, we couldn't serve alcohol to anyone under 18. It was a rule I took seriously. After all, this job was my lifeline, and I wasn't about to risk it for anyone. Little did I know that after 2 years of relatively smooth sailing, I was about to have my first real Karen encounter. It happened on a busy day when the weather was perfect and everyone seemed to want to sit outside on a terrace. I was working inside, but seeing how swamped my colleagues were, I decided to lend a hand with the outdoor tables. That's when I approached this family, mom, dad, and their son. They'd ordered non-alcoholic drinks except for one beer. As I got closer, I realized the beer was meant for the son. Now, this kid was shorter than me, and I'm only about 165 centimeters. Had no facial hair, and was skinnier than those models you see in underwear ads. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. I gave him a look and asked, "Can I see your ID, please?" The dad found this hilarious for some reason and started laughing. The son, on the other hand, looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. He started digging through his little waist pouch, getting more frustrated by the second. After what felt like an eternity of me standing there with my best, I'm a patient and understanding server smile, he finally mumbled, "I don't have it." I shook my head. "I'm sorry, but I can't serve you the beer without ID. Would you like something else instead?" He grudgingly ordered an iced tea, and I thought that was the end of it. I returned the beer to the bar and brought back his iced tea. I was about to head back inside when I heard mom muttering in English, "So rude." "Excuse me?" "You people are so rude." "I'm sorry, I don't understand. What's the problem?" "Why would you rudely deny my son one beer just because he forgot his ID at home? I was here to supervise him." I tried to explain that I needed this job and couldn't risk serving alcohol to a minor, but she wasn't having it. "He's actually 19. Are you stupid? Can't you tell? You were so rude. Who do you think you are? Why did you ID check him when you didn't even take the order? You might be legally correct, but morally, you are absolutely wrong. How dare you judge me and my family? What we do in our family is not your business." She went on, and I could feel my patience wearing thin. Finally, I'd had enough. "I apologize for any perceived rudeness. I won't be serving your table anymore. Feel free to speak with any of my colleagues if you need anything else." As I walked away, I could hear them hurling immigrant slurs at me in a local language. I tried not to let it get to me, but it stung. Later, I found out that the kid had somehow convinced one of my coworkers to serve him a beer, claiming he was turning 18 in less than a week. They also refused to pay for both the beer and the iced tea. When the manager came to their table to sort things out, they denied our entire interaction and just said they thought I was rude but didn't confront me. By that point, I was on my break, so I missed the drama that unfolded. As I sat in the break room sipping my coffee and trying to shake off the encounter, I overheard my manager talking to another server. Apparently, the family had made such a scene that other patrons had complained. The manager had asked them to leave and they'd stormed out without paying their bill. Just as my break was ending, my manager approached me. "Hey, I heard what happened. You did the right thing. We banned that family from the restaurant." "Oh, and that tip they refused to leave?" The other customers at the nearby tables pulled together to cover it. They said they were impressed by how you handled the situation. Maybe entitled people existed everywhere, but so did good ones. 2 years of waiting tables and I'd survived my first Karen encounter. I had a feeling it wouldn't be my last, but at least now I knew I could handle it. My son was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy when he was just 2 years old. It's been a challenging journey, but we've adapted. His custom motorized wheelchair has been a game changer, giving him independence and mobility. We try to live as normal a life as possible, which includes regular outings to places like the mall. That particular day started like any other. We were at the mall doing some back to school shopping. My boy was excited about getting new supplies for the upcoming year, and he's always been a bright kid, eager to learn despite the physical challenges he faces. After a couple of hours of shopping, nature called. Now, this is always a bit of a production when you're out with a child in a wheelchair. I can't just leave him anywhere, and taking him into the restroom with me isn't always practical. Luckily, this mall had a family restroom near a quiet hallway. I figured it would be safe to leave him there for just a few minutes while I used the facilities. I made sure he was comfortable and had his phone in case of emergencies. I'll be right back, buddy. You okay here for a few minutes? Yeah, Dad, I've got my game, don't worry. I ruffled his hair and went into the restroom, trying to be as quick as possible. I couldn't have been gone for more than 5 minutes, but when I came out, I was met with a scene that made my blood run cold. My son was sitting on the floor looking confused and upset. His wheelchair, his lifeline to independence, was being pushed around by a young boy maybe 6 or 7 years old. Behind the wheel was a woman, grinning as she pushed it like it was some kind of toy car. For a moment I was too shocked to speak. Then anger and disbelief took over. I stormed over to them, my heart pounding. What the hell do you think you're doing? The woman looked up startled. She had the audacity to smile at me. Oh, hello. Is this your son? He's such a sweetheart. He let my little angel have a turn on his school car. I was speechless. Did she really think this was okay? That's not a toy. It's a medical device. My son needs that wheelchair. Get your kid out of it right now. Karen's smile faltered, but she didn't move. Now, there is no need to be selfish. We're just borrowing it for a little while. You see, when we got to the mall, all the motorized cars for rent were taken. My poor baby was so disappointed. When we saw this fancy wheelchair, I thought it would be okay for him to have a quick spin. It's not hurting anyone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The entitlement was out of the charts. I don't care about your kid's disappointment. That wheelchair is not a toy. It's specially made for my son's medical condition. Now get your child out of it immediately. Don't be so dramatic. It's just for a few minutes. Your son seems fine on the floor. At this point, I was seeing red. I moved to lift her kid out of the chair myself, but she stepped in front of me. Don't you dare touch my child. I'll call security. Go ahead, call them. I'd love to explain how you stole a disabled child's wheelchair for your own amusement. We continued arguing, our voices getting louder. My son was still on the floor looking more distressed by the minute. I was about to physically remove her kid from the wheelchair when a security guard finally showed up. What's going on here? Before I could speak, Karen launched into a tirade. This man tried to assault me and my son. He's trying to steal our wheelchair. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sheer audacity of this woman was mind-boggling. That's a lie. This is my son's wheelchair. This woman took it while I was in the restroom and is refusing to give it back. The security guard looked confused, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. I say, listen, I want you to call the police and review the security footage. You'll see that this woman took the wheelchair from my disabled son. He's lying. This is our wheelchair. My son has just as much right to use it as his does. The security guard thankfully took my request seriously. He called for backup and contacted the local police. While we waited, Karen continued to protest, insisting that she had done nothing wrong and that I was overreacting. My son, bless his heart, remained surprisingly calm throughout the ordeal. I could see the worry in his eyes, but he didn't cry or make a fuss. I knelt beside him, trying to comfort him while keeping an eye on his wheelchair. It's going to be okay, buddy. We'll get this sorted out. I know, Dad. That lady is crazy. I chuckled. He wasn't wrong. When the police arrived, they took statements from both of us. Karen stuck to her ridiculous story, even going so far as to claim that my son had offered to let her child use a wheelchair. I calmly explained the situation, emphasizing the specialized nature of the wheelchair and its importance to my son's daily life. The officers were professional but seemed skeptical of Karen's story. They asked to review the security footage, which the mall security quickly provided. As we watched the video, Karen's face went pale. The footage clearly showed her approaching my son, who was alone in his wheelchair, and then her son getting into it while my son was moved to the floor. One of the officers turned to Karen with a stern expression. Ma'am, the video evidence clearly contradicts your statement. You're under arrest for theft and filing a false police report. Karen's demeanor changed instantly. She went from indignant to pleading in seconds. No, please. You don't understand. I just wanted my son to have some fun. I didn't mean any harm. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. The officers handcuffed her and read her rights. As they led her away, she was sobbing and begging for another chance. Her son, confused and upset, was taken by another officer who explained they contact a family member to pick him up. With Karen gone, I quickly got my son back into his wheelchair, checking it over for any damage. Fortunately, it seemed to be in working order. Sir, would you like to press charges? I looked at my son, then back at the officer. Yes, I want to press charges. This can't be allowed to happen to anyone else. The officer nodded, understanding in his eyes. He took down some additional information from me and explained the next steps in the process. As we finally left the mall, my son looked up at me. I'm glad you stood up for me, Dad. His words warmed my heart, reminding me why I fight so hard every single day. It was one of those mornings where everything just felt off. I've been up since 4 a.m., tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts about the big presentation I had later that day. By 5:30, I gave up on sleep and decided to head into the office early. Maybe I could get some last-minute prep done and calm my nerves. As I got into my trusty old hatchback, I realized I was running on fumes. Great, just what I needed. A detour to the gas station. I pulled into the nearest one, a 24-hour place that always seems to be deserted at this ungodly hour. As I rolled up to the pump, I noticed I wasn't alone. There was this massive pickup truck, the kind that screams I'm compensating for something, parked at the pump across from me. A guy was filling it up and I could see a woman sitting in the passenger seat. I got out of my car and started filling up. The woman from the truck hopped out and headed inside the station. I didn't think much of it at the time. My little hatchback doesn't take long to fill up, so I was done pretty quickly. I replaced the nozzle, closed my gas cap, and headed inside to pay. And that's when things got weird. As I walked in, I saw the woman from the truck standing at the counter. She wasn't paying though, just standing there. The cashier looked up as I entered. Hi there, are you ready to pay? I nodded and started walking towards the counter, but the woman didn't budge. Ma'am, could you please step aside so this customer can pay? No, we were here first. I was taken aback. Was this lady for real? But you're not finished filling up yet. I don't care. She can wait. We were here first. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked out the window and saw the guy was still filling up his monster truck. This woman was seriously trying to claim the counter just because they pulled in before me? The cashier wasn't having any of it. She stepped over to the other register and waved me over. I can take you over here, miss. I walked over, grateful for the cashier's common sense. But apparently Karen wasn't done. That's not fair. We were here first. She was actually yelling now, her face turning red. I tried to ignore her as I handed over my card to pay. Thanks for handling that. I appreciate it. The cashier tells me, no problem. Some people, right? We shared a knowing look as she handed me my receipt. I was about to leave when Karen decided to up the ante. You can't just serve her. We've been waiting. I'm going to call your manager and get you fired. That was it. I'd had enough of this entitled behavior. Listen, lady, you weren't ready to pay. I was. It's that simple. The world doesn't revolve around you. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? No, and I don't care. What I do know is that you're holding up the line and making everyone's morning worse. Why don't you just wait your turn like a normal person. You, you, I'll have you know my husband is a lawyer. I loudly laughed at that. Great, then he can explain to you how lines work. Have a nice day. With that, I walked out, leaving Karen sputtering behind me. As I got into my car, I saw her husband finally finishing up at the pump. He looked confused as he walked towards the store, probably wondering why his wife was having a meltdown inside. I started my car and pulled away, watching in my rearview mirror as Karen stormed out of the store, gesticulating wildly at her husband. I almost felt bad for the guy. And you know what? I nailed that presentation. I grew up on our family farm. I always knew it was special. My grandfather poured his heart and soul into this land, and it became the cornerstone of our family. I spent countless summers here learning the ropes from my dad and grandpa. We'd wake him at dawn, tend to the animals, and work the fields until sunset. Those were simpler times, filled with laughter and the satisfaction of honest work. But life has a way of changing things. My grandfather passed away recently, leaving behind a legacy and a tough decision. The farm had become too much to handle, and selling it was the only option. As the executor of the estate, my father took on the enormous task of managing the sale and decommissioning the property. Being the only one who truly understood the farm's inner workings, I stepped up to help him. For 4 grueling months, we've been neck deep in paperwork, meetings, and hard labor. Every day brings new challenges, dealing with county officials, realtors, potential buyers, and the mountain of legal work that comes with selling a property this size. We've been selling off equipment and vehicles, trying to tie up loose ends before the sale goes through. Dad's been completely transparent with everyone in the family about the sale. He told them months ago to come and collect anything they wanted to keep because everything else will be sold or tossed. But of course, some people just don't listen. Yesterday, I got a text that made my blood boil. It was from my cousin, the family's resident drama queen. She was upset because we sold an old truck that used to belong to her father, my late uncle. Here's how the conversation went. Cousin says, "How could you sell my dad's truck without telling me? I wanted to see it one last time." We told everyone months ago to come get what they wanted. The truck's been sitting in a field for 20 years. But you should have called me specifically about it. It was my dad's. If it meant so much to you, why didn't you come get it earlier? I was busy. You should have waited for me. We've been working on this for 4 months. You had plenty of time. This is so unfair. You're being selfish. I couldn't believe it. Here we were, busting our butts to handle this massive undertaking, and she has the audacity to complain about a truck she hadn't even bothered to check on in years. It's not like we hid anything. Dad made it crystal clear to everyone that everything was going to be sold or disposed of. What really gets me is that no one else in the family has lifted a finger to help. It's been just my dad and me, day in and day out, dealing with all the stress and work. The farm was supposed to be sold weeks ago, but the deal fell through, forcing us to extend our timeline. And in all this time, my cousin hasn't even set foot on the property. But that's just how she is, always expecting special treatment. This isn't the first time she's pulled something like this, and I doubt it'll be the last. It's like she thinks we have nothing better to do than cater to her whims. I called Dad after getting those texts, and he was just as angry as I was. We've been working ourselves to the bone, and now we're getting blamed for her lack of initiative? It's ridiculous. Dad tells me, can you believe her? We've been at this for months, and she's complaining now? I know, it's insane. What does she expect us to do? Turn back time? We can't keep putting our lives on hold for people who don't care enough to show up. Exactly. It's not our fault she didn't come when we asked everyone to. You know what? I am done entertaining this nonsense. We're doing what's best for the estate and that's final. I couldn't agree more with Dad. We decided to put an end to this drama once and for all. I drafted a message and sent it to the entire family. To all family members. Over the past 4 months, Dad and I have been working tirelessly to manage Grandpa's estate and the sale of the farm. We've been transparent about this process from the beginning and gave everyone ample opportunity to collect any items of sentimental value. We understand that some of you may have emotional attachments to certain things on a property. However, we cannot halt this process or make exceptions for individuals who didn't take the time to come to the farm when asked. The sale of the farm and its contents will proceed as planned. We will not be entertaining any further complaints or special requests. If you have concerns, you should have raised them months ago when we first announced the sale. We appreciate your understanding and cooperation during this difficult time. After sending that message, we turned off our phones for the rest of the day and got back to work. There's still so much to do. We can't waste time on people who don't appreciate the effort we're putting in. The farm might be going away, but at least Dad and I will have the satisfaction of knowing we handle things the right way, with honesty, hard work, and no special treatment for entitled relatives.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.